and welcome to the first of several of our Winter League Hot Stove editions of Pro Baseball World Tour here on RTC Multimedia. My name is Rick Crabb, and joining us from his palatial estate, easy for me to say, near his spring training facility in Florida, Mr. Eric Marenbach. Eric, how was your weekend, sir, and how's the Winter League Baseball been for you?
Well, as we say in the Winter Leagues, buenas noches, como está usted, and all that other good stuff, because it's Caribbean baseball all around. Mexico, Dominican Republic, Venezuela, a whole bunch of other countries, and a lot of stars in there, too.
Okay.
Because it's easy to get to. There's no quarantining. There's no fans in the stands, but, everybody's playing for their country, and it's all over the TV kind of thing.
Oh, that's good. Yeah, I saw some highlights of the Dominican games. It looked like it kind of looked like KBO. There were no fans in the stands, but the baseball still looked really good, so we will definitely talk about that. First story I want to get to is one that you and I have been speaking about on several episodes of this show. Be an interest, I think, not only to a lot of our listeners, but to you and I personally. Unfortunately, we found out through a tweet from a gentleman we hold in high regard, Mr. Daniel Kim. He mentioned that the KBO teams will not be holding any spring training in Arizona or Florida, as they have done in recent past years. Basically, he said due to COVID-19, and Eric, you and I were talking about this a little bit off the air just before we started, and you have some insight. In fact, you have some insight from one of the coaches of the Kia Tigers, do you not?
Well, I think I'm partially to blame for Daniel's tweet there, because on his YouTube show that he does almost every day, I popped on, I think it was actually the Saturday morning show that he did, and just point blank, I asked him, is there any news about spring training in Florida and or Arizona? And he basically said that nobody's coming. Then later on, I believe it is on the MyKBO site that we're on, our buddy Danny Kurtz pretty much put out a map of where everybody's going to be in and around Korea. Now, keep in mind, it's a heck of a lot colder over in Korea in our springtime than it is here, which is probably why the teams wanted to be here in the first place, because it is warmer here. But travel and everything else kind of interferes with the whole thing.
Yes, and I think, and you had also mentioned to me off the air, their biggest concern is not so much the destination of the travel, it's returning to Korea and the quarantining. He mentioned, because they said they were also exploring options such as Taiwan, and I know in the past some teams have practiced in Australia, so I guess those options are off the table now for that reason, right?
That's what I understand. Now, for the last couple of years, as far as I knew, KT and one of the other teams, I forget which one, had been doing their spring training in Taiwan before they go over to Japan and do that circuit. So at least they're a little closer. But the problem, from what I can understand, and it's from my buddy who's the bullpen coach of the Kia Tigers, it's more of the point that with the restrictions and everything else, there's quarantining on both sides, not only going to wherever, but coming back. So it's not so much the travel that's a hindrance, but all the protocol.
Understandable. And, I mean, you can't blame them for that, but it is a shame because, as Daniel mentioned in his tweet, and I'm sure he can elaborate further on this as well, a lot of the cities in Florida and Arizona that were counting on these teams coming, they are expecting some revenue out of this, and it's going to be lost, and it's going to take, those cities will probably take a big financial hit as a result of this, I would imagine.
See, okay. One of the guys that posts in our group says that Florida and Arizona stand to lose about $2 million with these teams not showing up. I think it's more than that, because you're not only talking about airlines, but you're talking about the hotels where they get put up at. You're talking about the caterers that cater in their food. You're talking about the transportation that's being used from the hotel to the stadium. All that is state revenue garner that Florida and Arizona are going to lose because of the 1 year that they are not coming. Now, coincidentally, MLB is doing some sort of a lawsuit with the insurance companies that they were involved with as far as trying to recover some of the money that they lost during the pandemic because of no fans in the stands and so on.
Well, yeah, that should be interesting how that turns out, because part of the reason there were no fans, originally there were no games because the MLBPA and the major MLB owners couldn't agree to even have any doggone games. So, I mean, I don't know, I could kind of see their point, but in a way, too, it's like, you almost didn't have any games at all. So, you know, you should be, I don't want to say you should be thankful for what you have, but I don't know, maybe to a degree they should be, in my opinion. I don't know, what do you think of that?
Totally agree. I mean, the lawsuit that they're alleging, that they claimed that the insurance companies were the best around, that they would recover some of the damages lost by not having fans in the stands. And I guess they're trying to base that case on the fact that at the end of the season they were able to house, 11,000 people in those games in Texas for the NLCS World Series, and they're trying to base a lawsuit off of that. I don't know.
Right.
It seems kind of frivolous to me, and it seems like they're crying over spilt milk, but if they can get any money back, more power to them.
I mean, yeah, I don't know how you can sue an insurance company over what state and local governments decide they want to do. I mean, most of the regular season, most of the sites didn't allow fans. I mean, Toronto, the whole country of Canada did not allow the Toronto Blue Jays to have any regular season games. They had to shuffle off to Buffalo, as we like to joke and get around about. But, granted, a lot of the states down south, like Texas and Florida, were lax as far as their COVID restrictions, which allowed fans to come to the World Series, but yeah, I'm not a lawyer by any means, but I don't see how, I agree with you, I don't see how they have a leg to stand on with that, but I could be wrong, who knows, but.
Yeah, I'm no lawyer either, but I did pay the Holiday Inn Express once.
Oh, there you go. Yeah. I thought you were going to say you played one on TV. You may have done that too in the past, but.
Hey, on my Super Nintendo, I actually created a character. No, I'm okay.
Oh, there you go. Okay, all right. Well, you got some man skills. There you go, Eric. Good job. All right. Well, in other news, I found another story. We were talking about Australia before. This is one I just happened to see, courtesy of the Brisbane Bandits of the Australian Baseball League. I definitely want to hear your opinion of the individual involved in this story. Apparently, the Brisbane Bandits are having a women's baseball clinic, and they're doing so with a New York Yankees batting coach by the name of Rachel Balkovec. A story, as I mentioned, from the Brisbane Bandits and the ABL. Yankees hitting coach set to impact Queensland women's baseball. The Brisbane Bandits are excited to share that the New York Yankees hitting coach Rachel Balkovec will host a workshop for Queensland women at the ABL Women's Showcase. The ABL Women's Showcase aims to draw attention from all over the world as the Brisbane Bandits take on the Adelaide Giants in the first doubleheader of two within the 2020/21 ABL season. As we prepare for this historic event, the Brisbane Bandits have been working closely with the Sydney Blue Sox and Rachel Balkovec to provide women in Queensland an opportunity to learn from one of the world's best. Brisbane Bandits principal owner Mark Reddy shared his excitement with being able to provide an opportunity for the state's women's baseballers a chance to learn from one of MLB's elite coaches. Quote, "We are excited to host the first ABL Women's Showcase in Brisbane, yet didn't want to miss an opportunity to give Queensland women the best opportunity possible. Rachel Balkovec is one of the best in her field, and to have her accessible to impart her knowledge and expertise to our women baseballers is invaluable. We are thankful to Adam Dobbs and the Sydney Blue Sox organization for creating the avenue to have Rachel in Brisbane before the team to help celebrate women's baseball in Queensland and in Australia. The workshop will be made available to any women and be free of charge. It will be held at 4 p.m. on Friday the 8th of January 2021 at Vidicon Stadium." So that's interesting, Eric. So it seems like not only in Australia, they're trying to build up the game of baseball in general, but they're really trying to push it for women as well. I don't know, what's your take on that, especially since, are you familiar with this particular batting coach since you have a history with the Yankees?
I'm actually not, because I think this year was her first hire. And the whole concept of women's baseball here in the States, even as far as women playing some sort of hardball, it's usually just the only thing that I had ever heard of is the quote-unquote fast-pitch softball that Olympians like Jenny Finch used to participate in, that there's still somewhat of a league, but, it kind of faded to black as far as popularity goes. There is the USSSA, which is up in Brevard County, about 2.5 hours north of me in Florida, where the Nationals used to hold their spring training, where they hold a majority of their games. But other than that, I'm not exactly familiar with it. The fact that they're playing hardball in Australia and trying to grow the game over there, hey, more power to them.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, in fact, I think they're trying to start a professional league over there. It'll almost be like an Australian league of their own, but I'm sure they won't have a lot of the tropes that the women's league had in the 40s in that, in that movie. The women probably won't have to put up with going to charm school or anything like that. Hopefully it seems like they'll probably be treated more seriously, and, so good for them. I hope they do. But
I really hope they don't wear skirts like they did in the movie.
Right. No, I know. And, I remember in the movie when Madonna or one of the characters were complaining about, if they had to slide, about dirt riding up and all that, and I don't know. Okay, we're going off the rails with that, but, it sounds like it's a very positive move in Australia for ABL, and I think they're governing body Baseball Australia, which controls the women's league as well as I think their national team too. So good for them all.
Plus, Brisbane has always been a hotbed. As a matter of fact, when we get off the air, I'll probably try to contact my buddy over with the Bandits, Ricky Lowe, who would probably know more about the baseball thing than you or I know, and maybe we can get some research on that.
That would be great. Yeah. Okay. Yeah, definitely. Yeah. We'll definitely look forward to that. Okay. Well, I have another story over in Japan for a change. Usually it's hard. Some weeks it's been tough to get news out of that country for some reason, but let's see. And especially where?
both.
Yeah, well, they're special in a lot of good ways and a lot of positive ways. Japan is definitely one of my bucket list countries to see baseball. Plus I wanted to go to Japan for years for other things too, but definitely for their baseball as well. We have a story. It says former Samurai Japan Premier 12 manager Hiroki Kukobu joins Fukoka Hawks coaching staff. The defending Japan Series champions. Okay. A top slugger and Gold Glove winner as a player in the NPB, he transitioned from the field to managing the Samurai Japan national team in 2013. He will serve under four-time Japan Series winning manager Kimiyasu Kudo. Hiroki Kukubo, who managed Samurai Japan to third place in the inaugural WBSC Premier 12, have been named the bench coach of the four-time Nippon Professional Baseball League defending champions Fukoka Soft Bank Hawks. He will serve under manager Kimiyasu Kudo. The 49-year-old was one of the top NPB power hitters during his playing career. He hit 413 career home runs playing for the Hawks and the Tokyo Yomiuri Giants. He was the 2011 Japan Series MVP and appeared in 11 All-Star games. Kukobu won Gold Gloves both as a second baseman in '95 and as a first baseman 2010 and 2011. Kukobu helped Japan earn an Olympic bronze medal in the 1992 Olympics in Barcelona, Spain. Having retired as a player after the 2012 season, Kukobu was named manager of the Samurai Japan national team in 2013. During the WBSC Premier 12 2015, current Samurai Japan manager Atsunori Inaba served on his coaching staff. And we have a little tweet about that underneath. We will skip through that. He commented during a press conference, "I will be the link between manager Kudo and the players and also between the manager and the rest of the coaches." Had a little cat delay there. The Hawks are reportedly interested in signing Cuban hard-throwing right-handed reliever Andy Rodriguez. The 22-year-old plays for Industriales of Havana in Cuba's Serie Nacional. He appeared in one game for Cuba at the World WBSC Premier 12 2019. So there you have it. So seems like the rich are getting richer. The Hawks are getting a prominent player for their coaching staff, and it looks like we have yet another star Cuban player joining the ranks as well. Eric, what's your take on any of those there?
Well, the pitcher I know from the Premier, and I just wish that probably more scouts from MLB could have taken a look at him, and not that I'm necessarily advocating defection, but, found a way to get him over here instead of him having to go to Japan. Mm-hmm. Because you want the best talent in the U.S. Okay, for the Asian League, I love it, the fact that he's going to join the Hawks and join some of the other Cubans there, but if you're regarded as one of the best, like Luis Robert was with the White Sox, and now he's succeeding up there, by all means try to get him here, but I guess politics and virus, overrun everything, so. Right,
that's true. Yeah, we've spoken about that on a few episodes, so that basically how Cuban talent, they're forced to go elsewhere besides the United States because of politics, and Japan has definitely benefited from that. So, and I would agree. I would like to see Major League Scouts bring those players over just so we could see them, and I think for their own benefit, they would be marketed to the moon as well. So.
But then there's the other side of the coin, which I've explained to you also. Whereas if these Cubans are so good, why aren't they being scouted more by major leaguers? And not necessarily convinced to defect, but, at least made arrangements for.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, when the Miami Marlins had the Mesa brothers defect and come over, they were not the elites of Cuba, but the Marlins were looking for some way to rejuvenate the Cuban community down in Little Havana over there and convince them to defect. Now, if you're going to try and get some Cuban talent to replace Jose Fernandez, it shouldn't have been them.
Right.
To be quite honest. I mean, I love those kids to death. They're young. They may have potential to get better, but if you're going to go for Cuban talent to offset Fernandez, you could have gone for somebody better. Like the pitcher here.
Hmm. Now, why were those players considered, though, Eric? Was there a financial consideration? Like maybe they thought they can get them on the cheap, or was that part of the reason? Or
I don't know what the actual deal was when they convinced the two of them to defect. And, of course, the father is a very famous player in the Cuban game, Victor Mesa.
Mm-hmm.
I think we went over this where every child that he has Victor in his name somewhat. There's Victor Jr., there's Victor Victor. Mm-hmm. There's probably a Victor somewhere around, so it's probably popular.
Oh, gosh. He sounds like a Cuban George Foreman. Didn't he used to do that with all his kids? Named all his sons George? Probably named some daughters Georgia, I guess, too.
Yeah, well, if you ever had a daughter or a transsexual, but that's for another show. At least it wasn't like George.
Right.
You know,
or like who we spoke about last week, Henry.
Yeah, Henry. Yeah, but if you're gonna, like I said, if you're gonna choose guys, and really, they weren't even rated in the top 100. I think Victor actually got in at like number 99, and I think that was more of like a pity thing because every team has to be represented somewhat.
Right.
I feel for the kids, but they're not that good.
No. Oh, well.
They may get there, but they're not that good.
No. Well, it's a shame about him, but, and it's a shame, too, that we don't have more exposure to the Cuban players, but with the benefits of technology with YouTube and the various apps and such that we discussed last week, and we're going to probably discuss more in detail later on in this episode, we will get to watch more baseball, and, it's one thing, like as I mentioned before, and it sounds kind of morbid to say, there's really nothing positive about this pandemic, but one thing, as far as an entertainment option, a lot of people were able to discover baseball outside of the U.S., but largely because of this, and I don't know, I'm glad for that particular thing, and that's why I enjoy doing this show with you, so we can bring more baseball to the masses, from the other countries, and we can do it year-round, thankfully, as well, so.
And we actually brought this up in the Facebook group about how next year it's probably going to be tossed aside with the prospect of a full MLB season. The KBO is not going to probably renew its contract with Spo TV or whatever. So we'll still be able to watch the games, when we want to over Twitch or whatever avenue. But in the U.S., we're kind of closed-minded and only want sports from the States and not international. It's kind of a shame.
It's definitely a shame, because I think people are missing out. If you're a true baseball fan, you should watch some of these players from the other countries, especially since Major League Baseball teams are scouting internationally and bringing some of those players over. But even so, Nice thing about the KBO, I mean, it works both ways. It's like MLB is scouting from the other countries, but then when you watch KBO or Taiwan, or as I saw a highlight with the Dominican Republic, you see players who have played in MLB and the minors in the United States, and you get to see them say, oh yeah, he played for my team, you know. It's cool. I think I'm going to follow this team in the Dominican Republic because it's got a few players that I used to root for the Yankees or the Orioles or whatever, you know, so I don't know. I think it's a lot of fun. And also another thing I think American fans don't realize until they actually see it is something you and I have seen once in KBO and you've seen in person in Taiwan. How passionate those audiences are for those games and those teams. And it really makes a difference as far as the game watching experience too. So, I mean, that's one of the reasons I want to either go with you to Taiwan or go to Japan or go to Korea, you know, for KBO or whatever, you know, any of those countries. I want to see how they enjoy baseball, and I think if I were in the stands with them, I'd probably enjoy watching it even more for that reason. So,
and that's what kind of sucks about the Winter Leagues this year in the Caribbean, whereas you've only got 1, 2, maybe 3 teams in Mexico that actually has very limited fans in the stands. Other than that, of the main leagues, nothing in the Dominican, nothing in Venezuela, which just started last weekend, nothing in Mexico, nothing in Colombia. We'll see tomorrow if they loosen anything in Puerto Rico.
Mm-hmm.
The only league that does seem to be having fans, from what I can see, is Nicaragua.
Oh, okay.
I don't know how the pandemic is over there, but even Colombia, which it's not a popular league, although one of the main stadiums is actually named after star Colombian player Edgar Renteria, former Marlins World Series participant. But, you know, there's nothing. So the fan atmosphere in these ballparks is definitely missing, but through the magic of the internet, when people want to watch, they watch. And not only that, but even though the leagues in Asia are done, you're still getting these kids tournaments that are widely watched over their sports networks and YouTube. So baseball is pretty much an all-year-round thing. If it's not the professionals, it's the kids doing it, and it's widely broadcast on their network.
Well, you had said that the high school tournament in Taiwan is hugely popular over there, and they have...
Oh, it's huge.
Yeah, and they kind of, I think this year, because of the pandemic, they kind of had the Popcorn League kind of almost substitute for it, but, I mean, yeah, that's interesting that, I mean, I guess it's almost like...
Popcorn actually substituted for the Winter League, but the high school tournament, you know, that goes every year.
Okay.
And, you know, there's some schools that are bigger than others that draw more fans to the stadium. In Taiwan, of course, there's no fan limitations, so, you know, that never changes. And that's always pretty much the month of November.
Now, I don't remember if I asked you this on previous episodes or not. I know with this particular season, Eric, I know you said there are no fan limitations in Taiwan. Well, you have seen in other Asian leagues such as KBO, when they have allowed fans, they still have restrictions, like they don't allow fans to bring food or drink to their seats or anything of that nature. Or have you heard of any such restrictions in Taiwan? Have they had like special COVID restrictions because of that?
Okay, I had heard that you weren't going to bring anything from outside the stadium, like from a McDonald's or something like that. But there are plenty of inside concessions within the ballpark, from different contracted stadium vendors,
Right.
that's still allowed.
Mm-hmm. But I had heard from...
I know,
Oh, okay.
nothing from the out.
All right. Yeah, because I had heard from KBO they still sold food and drink, but you had to, basically eat in the concourses, I guess, near where the stands are, the concession stands were, at tables, but you couldn't bring them to your seats. But, okay, but you think that the CPBL didn't have any such restrictions up?
No, not at all.
Okay. Yeah, that's interesting.
And their pizza was actually pretty good.
And their what was?
There's the Taiwan Pizza Hut.
Oh, okay. Gotcha. All right.
Good stuff.
Okay. I'll make a note of that if you get to go there one day. Huh? So, that's cool. All right. Well, so we mentioned a lot of the professional leagues in Central and South America, and you've been watching them very carefully. And as I think, just as I called you before this recording, you said you were watching a Dominican game right now. What are some observations as far as players, any teams that have popped out to you so far?
In this year's Dominican League so far, what they call the East Bowls, the Toros del Este, they are loading up on Major League talent. I'm not exactly sure how they determine who goes where. Normally in the Arizona Fall League, the 6 teams that are there are comprised of affiliates from 6 MLB teams.
Okay.
6 teams will will go to the surprise team. 6 will go to Peoria, and so on. Over in the Dominican and wherever else, there's no limitations. So, I was watching a game the other night it was the Licey Tigers against the Toros, where you actually had Yankees on both teams playing against each other. So there's no limitations on who goes where. It's, I don't know, just a preference of team or maybe where they come from, or I don't know how it works.
Yeah, I was going to say, do any of the teams there have any agreements with teams here? I don't think they have minor league affiliates, but so that's interesting. So you could have, like you said, Yankees playing against each other on 2 teams. That's wild. But
yeah, as a matter of fact, what was it? Davey Garcia striking out Miguel Andujar. It was kind of funny.
Yeah.
But actually today, the Toros will have Yasiel Puig join their ball club.
No kidding.
Rosters are pretty much set week to week, and these guys, I hate to say it, but they come and go as they please.
Right.
So a couple of days ago, the Toros had Gary Sanchez join the team, and he has proceeded to not only lose a load of weight from a photo that I got from whoever, but the power numbers are definitely there. He's hit 2 homers in 2 games already. So hopefully his defense will get worked on a little bit, because with 2020, again, all the naysayers are, on his ass, saying, all right, let's get rid of him. Bottom line is, you have no replacement for him, and his offensive numbers when he drops are off the charts.
Okay.
You gotta get him right. That's the bottom line. And if it means playing winter ball to get the extra reps in because you only had a 60-game season, so be it.
Now, I was wondering about that. I was wondering how financially, they're able to get these players, or is it just a case of they're down there just trying to, some cases, just trying to get some more reps, or they're just down there because they're like, okay, we're just down here playing for fun, almost like an expensive type of pickup ball. It sounds like almost.
in the past, when there's been fans in the stands, more or less these guys come back and play for their country.
Right.
That's how it pretty much works in the Caribbean World Series, where there's more of a pride involved.
Hmm.
I don't think the money definitely doesn't have anything to do with it.
Right.
But in the days of a pandemic where there's actually no fans in the stands and nothing to feed off of, you're basically just playing just to stay in shape.
Right. And I may have come off as disrespectful when I say playing as pickup. I meant to say that the players are playing, more just for the enjoyment of the game, pretty much, And as you mentioned, also sounds like national pride. But I didn't mean any disrespect with that last comment. I meant it.
Not at all.
Yeah.
No, not at all. It's more of pride for the country, giving back to the community, that kind of thing.
Right.
And as well as staying in shape.
Right.
And the fact that you only had a 60-game regular season, so, you're not getting 600 bats.
Right.
600 bats if you're a starting player.
Yeah, you had limited at-bats, you had limited games, and you also had limited training prior to that, so I guess there's even more of an incentive to play to get back into shape, I guess, too, so.
Exactly.
And, of course, there are winter leagues, and, I don't know, rumor has it their temperatures are just a little warmer than they are up in the mid-Atlantic and northeast coast, where you reside a lot of the year and where I reside now, and it's like, ugh, I wouldn't mind seeing a game in the Dominican Republic right now, to tell you the truth. But
Although I'll tell you, I went to Mexico back, I'm trying to think. It was probably around 6 or 7 years ago for a few winter league games. It was a little chilly. So it wasn't your typical winter league where, it's warmer, supposed to be warmer, you're playing in front of all this. But of course in Mexico you've got the extra factor of people don't come in on time anyway because they're busy getting drunk out the parking lot.
Right.
It was fun stuff. Again, it's all about the crowd feeding into the atmosphere and the players feeding off of that and just all national pride involved.
Right. Yeah, and we were talking earlier about how sports fans in our country just want to stick to sports within this country, and very few of them like international sports, but, and that's another thing. It doesn't seem like you have players wanting to play for national pride or whatever. I mean, it seems like, I don't know, there was a lot of cases where you have, patriotism, Lee Greenwood, God bless the USA and all that, but for sports, really, you don't have that. I guess mainly because, I don't know, there aren't any, I guess with soccer or baseball, it's more international. You can have bragging rights with a World Baseball Classic or a World Cup. I mean, I don't see any.
I was just going to say that. The only time you really see that in baseball is during the WBC, where, these countries will basically jump all over each other.
Oh, yeah. And I think you see that everywhere, except even in that tournament, you see that everywhere but the United States. I mean, it's like, people are like, yeah, whatever. But, I mean, they care more about seeing individual players for these teams. Like, they care more about seeing A-Rod or Manny Machado or whoever for Dominican Republic or Ichiro for Japan or something like that than they do about cheering on the USA. I mean, they don't treat it as like an Olympic or an international tournament kind of. I mean, I don't know, towards the end when the USA actually won, I think some fans were getting into it. But for the most part, I mean, I don't know. It
brings to mind something that when the U.S. did win it, a remark by Ian Kinsler came to mind, and it still burns me to this day. That other countries play the way that we do, and so on. We play more of a business-like thing. We don't celebrate as much. We don't do this, and this, because it's one of those unwritten rules kind of thing. I guarantee you, and I said this to many, many people back when he said it in 2017, I guarantee you that if he would have played for his country, which happened to have been Israel, if Israel would have gone all the way, that never would have come out of his mouth.
Right. I'm guessing maybe he said that because a lot of players in all the teams in that tournament, I mean, he had to come back as teammates, I guess. And, I don't know, you and I have had criticisms about Major League Baseball about being, kind of sticking in the mud with certain unwritten rules and that kind of thing. I mean, it's like, if they're unwritten, I think they should be erased rules. That's my personal opinion on a lot of that stuff. But, yeah, I mean, like you said, it's more business, like more corporate, I would imagine. Which kind of, I almost want to see other teams win it just so you can see, like, the big parade in, like, their country's capital or whatever. I don't know. And I don't even, in fact, Eric, and maybe you might remember seeing it, I don't remember seeing, like, the U.S. team going to the White House to celebrate or whatever. I mean, usually, like, if a U.S., like, the hockey team wins a gold medal or the basketball team or something like that, they'll, in a non-Trump year, will go to the White House to celebrate, and the president will congratulate them and get a jersey and that kind of. I don't remember seeing that for the U.S. when they won the World Baseball Classic. Do you, or?
Well, in 17, which of course was the Trump year, they didn't go.
Right.
And a lot of teams didn't go. Well, when they won their championship, and that was more because of the turmoil that we have in this country, unfortunately, the racial divide and some of the other divisions, which, again, it brings me back to that kind of sucks. I mean, we're supposed to be patriots and, be honored, but yet we can't be honored because of what the higher-ups are doing.
Right. And, yeah, and it sucks. And it's like, a lot of it is individual player choice and team choice, too. I mean, it's like, I've seen it on both ends. I mean, I remember when the Boston Bruins won the Stanley Cup, their goalie was Republican and did not like that Obama was in the White House. He chose not to go to the White House when they went to Washington to play the Washington Capitals. And usually that's what will happen when a team, NBA or NHL team, wins a championship. They'll wait until they actually play games in D.C. and attend the White House beforehand. But he chose not to go. And in fact, it was funny. I remember seeing the warm-up skates. They actually had Capitals fans post all these pictures of Barack Obama along the glass around the ice by his goal to taunt them a little bit. But I mean, yeah, you see that a lot. I know a lot of the teams during the Trump years decided not to go because a lot of their players were African American. Remember the women's national team, the captain of that team was a member of the LGBT community, and she knelt for the national anthem too. So I mean, there were some.
And it's funny because Megan Rapinoe. Okay, she's from the LGBTQ community, but I admire what she did or didn't do as far as not coming to the White House, because more or less it's everybody's prerogative,
right,
not to show up. For whatever reason, it's their prerogative.
Mm-hmm.
And now my cable is freezing, so
gosh.
The Gigantes game is kind of frozen on my screen.
Oh,
what are you going to do?
Uh-oh.
I don't care.
Okay.
We're still talking together, so it don't matter.
Oh.
The Dominican League are probably the most successful of the Winter League, followed by in a full atmosphere Mexico and then Venezuela.
Okay.
Although because of the time difference, normally I do Dominican first, then Venezuela, and then Mexico, because the Mexico Winter League is more Pacific.
Okay.
So their games start more like 8:30, 9 o'clock instead of 6 or 6:30.
Okay. All right.
Columbus.
Yeah. Okay.
Starting their games in the afternoon, which is kind of cool.
Oh, there you go. All right. So definitely still plenty of options to watch, especially if you have, as Eric does, a good package for Spanish-speaking programming, I suppose. So, all right. Well, and last week we had mentioned as far as, a lot of different links for a lot of different teams and that sort of thing. And some of the teams even have free YouTube, either live or delayed broadcast games. So, I have a lot of options. So that's always good to have. So.
Right. If you want it bad enough, there's always ways to dig. It's just like, gossip columns. If you want to know something about somebody or some sport, if you care, if you're passionate enough to actually go and dig for it, you'll find it.
Okay. All right. Well, I don't know. Hopefully we can encourage more people to do some more digging, I suppose. But, all right. All right, Eric, do you have anything else to comment about any of the leagues, any of the teams, anything else going on this week?
Other than some of the additions, that go week to week, and it's especially a revolving door in the Dominican. You never know who's gonna crop up in these leagues, either to just get some reps in or just stay in their country and hang out.
Mm-hmm. Okay. All right. Well, we will definitely have some more baseball as more countries will be opening up leagues, and we'll have some more games. And I still want to do a watch party with some of these games. So, we still have to decide on that. I'm thinking of maybe doing something, since probably the pandemic will probably cause a lockdown in a lot of states and people won't be able to go anywhere. I still want to do maybe a New Year's Eve game somewhere, perhaps maybe with the Dominican or with Colombia, or, I know I talked about Australia. Probably time zone wise, that might not work, but we'll see what our options are with that, I guess.
Like I said, it all depends. Australia starts up, I believe, December 18th.
Mm-hmm. Right.
And most of their games are, in our time zone, about 3 in the morning.
Right. Although I did see one for Sydney, I think, either on the 30th or the 31st, and it's so hard to tell with the difference in the times. I thought they had one, it was like 9 o'clock our time, which was kind of strange, but, unless
you get, a double header in Perth, where that was a nice homer. As long as you get, like, some of the areas with a, good enough time zone, like in Perth or Sydney,
mm-hmm.
where the time just happens to click. Otherwise, you're pretty much watching on demand from a game that would start at 3 o'clock in the morning our time.
Right, gotcha. Okay. All right. Okay, that's definitely something to consider. And like I said, usually if we do that, I want to do it live. Just even we can record like a pregame show like we do, as another episode of Pro Baseball World Tour, and then we can just find a good YouTube feed and just go in the comments and invite people over and just have our favorite food and beverage and ring in the new year with some international baseball. So, why not?
Yeah, but I think you're more familiar with the Korean food, whereas I can go for a good taco here and there for the games.
Yeah, well, the Korean food is good. I would be inclined to go with a motif of whatever country we're watching. If we're watching Dominican or Mexican, maybe get some recipes from those countries. If we're watching Australia, I don't know, maybe I'll get some Foster's oil cans and go get something from Outback. I don't know, but we'll figure something out for sure. So,
yeah, Pat Kelly was bugging about that once.
What's that?
Pat Kelly was bugging me about that once. He's like, all right, so when are we going out to Outback? I go, aren't you sick of Australian food being...
Right.
So you have to buy it, with your wife, and he goes, hey, I can go for a blooming onion every freaking time.
There you go. I think they're about as Australian as Mexican, as Taco Bell is Mexican, really. That's, I could be totally wrong on that, but, I mean, we'll see. But, alright, Eric, well... And, ladies and gentlemen, thank you for joining us once again. This episode is, like the old saying, it's not the size, but how you use it, and, we'll take advantage of it as we can. So, I mean, these episodes might be a little shorter, but we'll be covering more of these winter leagues, and we'll be having a good time with it regardless of the length of the program itself. So thank you for...
We may actually have to get different... sign on and sign off, because I don't know about you, but seeing the MC Dino cheerleaders talking about Caribbean ball,
right?
I don't know. So we may have to come up with something, but we will.
Well, it's funny you mention that because, I mean, I didn't really mention this to you off the air, but we will be coming up with definitely a new intro. In fact, this episode will have a new intro with different music and that sort of thing. But, yeah, I'll have to look for something for that, too. Just to stay more in step. I mean, maybe we'll find some... I don't know, any of the Caribbean leagues, do they have cheerleaders like KBO, or... or...
Under normal circumstances, yeah. With this pandemic and stuff, nobody's been on the field, except for the occasional mascot in Mexico. But in the Dominican, there hasn't been anything.
Okay.
And where else there hasn't been anything? The best mascot in Mexico, I will advocate this till the cows come home, is a giant gorilla named Chongo.
Oh, wait a minute. Okay. All right. Eric, I think you're on to something. You can't go wrong with gorillas or apes or monkeys or anything like that. That would be sweet. Okay.
You must go on Google and actually search, and I will send you a link or two later. You search under Chongo Zero Pay, the actual number 0, and then TE at the end. This guy is hysterical under normal circumstances.
Oh.
He will basically not only harass players on the, but he will harass fans too.
Oh, cool. Okay.
There was a game that we went to in Culiacan way back when. I specifically wanted to go to Culiacan simply because I wanted to see this guy up close. He would actually pull down his lower part of his gorilla costume and moon people. It's awesome.
Okay, you know what? NC Dino cheerleaders, congratulations on your team winning the Korean series. We're going to retire you ladies for a while. You're being replaced by the friggin' gorilla. That's awesome. Okay.
By a Mexican gorilla, yeah.
All right. Okay. All right, folks. Well, fans around the world, including Mexican gorillas, thank you so much. We'll talk to you next week.
Adios, amigos.